The Quintessential Quintuplet. Anyways, hey guys, Nino TV here, and welcome back to a new video. Well guys, last Thursday, Season 2 of the Quintessential Quintuplets released its final episode of the season. A lot of people, including myself, were exhilarated after watching this episode, heck, this series, and it quickly became one of my favorite animes. But I feel like there's a lot that should be said that hasn't already about the anime. So today, I'm going to be explaining why the Quintessential Quintuplets, or Quinn for short, is the best romance anime right now. This video is being split up into segments so that the structure of the video stays intact, and of course there will be timestamps in the description. And I am mainly going to be mentioning the anime as it may be taking its own adaptation versus the manga, so keep that in mind. I hope you all enjoy. Let's begin! The main plot originally for the anime followed Yusugi Fuutarou, an exceptional student looking for a tutoring job. Out of sheer coincidence, he finds a well-paid job tutoring his classmates, the Nakanos, who are quintuplets and at first are lethargic to studying by any means. The sister at times were really stubborn towards Yusugi for working his hard at school, but as the series progressed, you can see that they aren't plain stupid. They do have reasons for what they do, and as it would be apparent, they will succeed in their studies. The curveballs thrown at the viewers make for the amazing character change and thorough curiosity. From the get-go, Fuutarou understands he is the teacher to the sisters, and he probably should not be involved in family affairs. However, it is safe to assume that their bonds escalate as he pushes himself to get these girls to pass this year to prove to himself he can teach them, while dealing with certain mishaps.
Huh?
この時、俺はまだ理解していなかった。
The Quins have a strictish father who at the end of the day wants the best for his daughters, which I can respect. After a school transfer, the girls spend the next school year living together in an apartment. After a few months of Fuutarou tutoring the girls, midterms come up and the grades come in. A bit of a surprise, it turns out they all fail. Ouch. Devastated, Fuutarou mans up to his failings and tells their father that he's going to stop tutoring the girls. However, the girls, as you'll see, really like Fuutarou and think he's special. And funny enough, they end up lying to their father for Fuutarou to tutoring them for the finals in a few months. So this scene was one of the ones that really stuck with me from season 1. Not only does he think the girls have excelled since the beginning, he also has analyzed pretty well what each quintuplet succeeds at and fails at, and their mindsets that they have. It's funny how he can do that, but he still can't tell the quintuplets apart. But I wouldn't say he's completely dense in season 1. In season 2, there is quite less time spent on the girls' grades and more of their relationship with Fuutarou and each other. Mainly, however, they all do pass the final exam, and their father is impressed with that and Fuutarou's accomplishment, being the top 3 represented in Japan. From season 2, 3 of the girls openly showed their feelings to Fuutarou, even though it's obvious they all have feelings for him. But I like the shift to the conflict between the sisters. Yes, they have feelings for him, but at the end of the day, they are sisters and should take care of each other. It's difficult to go on about season 2 without talking about the characters specifically, so that's the vague basics of the plot. Let's start talking about the characters specifically. I explained a bit of Fuutarou already, but to reiterate, he's a pretty smart guy as you can imagine. He works hard for the girls to pass, and has changed from the girls' experiences with him. I think a lot of us in this scenario would change as well, but the change is different because he was more collective and simply just not fun before, and he didn't really talk to anyone. But now he's willing to have fun and laugh around the girls. Even later in season 2, he had a goal to learn how to tell his sisters apart, based on how they interact with each other, which should show his perseverance. In the anime, Fuutarou has an image of him with one of the Quins years ago. He was having a rebirth, if you will, after meeting and talking to this girl. In the last episode of season 2, it was finally answered who Fuutarou met when he was a kid. It was originally Itsuki, and he also interacted with Ichika a bit. It's interesting that they actually met when they were kids and had a great time. The reason I bring this up, however, is it greatly impacted the feelings of some of the Quins, is that experience changed Fuutarou the most. He went from being this notably emo-like kid to studying really hard to become one of the top students in Japan. One more event I do want to touch on here is in the episode Begin the Offensive, while talking to Nino, she finds out that working this hard day in and day out with the girls, his grades on the final declined. For Fuutarou's standards, as he said, it's pretty embarrassing. So even though the series is mostly centered around the quintuplets, of course, I just want to take the time to share some light on my guy Fuutarou for caring about them. From these 3 experiences alone, Fuutarou has changed from interacting with the quintuplets the most. I mean, hey, I didn't even talk about the Itsuki slap scene, but that goes to show that there is good writing in these episodes. Depending on how you look at it, I would say his life has improved significantly. Alright, so the first quintuplet I'll be talking about is Ichika. Even though they are quintuplets, Ichika is technically the eldest by probably a few seconds and tries to withhold that status. Since season 1, she worked an acting job and took it more seriously than school. It really took until the episode Legend of Fate Day 3, where she had the first growth as she gets stuck with Fuutarou in a shed while on a school trip. Beforehand, she was starting to get feelings for Fuutarou when he tried explaining to her not to be afraid to let others see her true emotions. From being an actor for only a short amount of time, she has exceeded in being able to hide her emotions or switch between them. I forgot to mention this, but the Quins all have these accessories and wigs that they carry around with them to interchange between themselves in case of emergencies. And out of the 5, Ichika probably does the gimmick the most and the best. I know a lot of people started heavily disliking Ichika, but yeah, she is a scum at the end of the day. She was willing to ruin Miku's attempt to talk to Fuutarou so that she can win. While no, I'm not saying her actions were good, Ichika was just nervous about the fact that it is literally a sister war between the 5 of them on who's gonna win Fuutarou. She did not want to hurt her sisters, but she did want to win and have an advantage. But her ignorance and romance made Ichika only focus on winning him over anyone else. One instance that also may have pushed herself to become close to Fuutarou was the fact that she got the highest grade on the finals out of her sisters. Maybe doing well made her think Fuutarou would like her better, but again, he doesn't mind the way the quintuplets are or how intelligent one of them are. However, sometimes a character needs to go through trauma or personal complications to see for themselves their fault trees, and Ichika gets some bonus points for doing that. In the final episode of season 2, hear me out here, she realizes that deceiving her family is bad. She knew it was awful, but she still continued to cause a mishap. Despise or love Ichika, it is undeniable that what she did was not good, but she did end up changing and forgave her sins. And that kiss at the end also gave us some points, I guess, for us weebs. So the next quintup is Nino, of course. In the beginning, Nino was the most resentful of Fuutarou when he began tutoring. She wouldn't participate in studying and flat out just didn't like him. She even drugged the poor guy, so I could see why people didn't like her. However, it took until the school trip where Fuutarou was in a long lie as Nino fell in love with a picture of him from 6 years ago. Nino was in love with him, so in finding out that Fuutarou was disguised as his cousin all along, the fact he went this length with the act / what he did must have hit Nino really hard somehow. And on top of that, and on top of finding this out, she also had a complication with her sister that were resolved. I like seeing Nino being more content with Fuutarou over her being bratty with him. Nino was quite pushy in the anime as well. For one, she was the first to confess her feelings directly to him. She wasn't afraid to tell him how she felt. And I have to admit, her confession was one of my favorites. Sounds were colorful during the scene, and it was just really adorable. She changed a lot from when they originally met. And she was super uncomfortable when she confessed, but wanted to do it because that's her character. And there have been several times where she wanted to get closer with him, through working at the same place as him, or maybe the hot springs scene. But I think the golden part of Nino's character is her motives. Yes, she wants to show her love to Fuutarou, whether that's cooking or showing affection to him. And she said to Ichigo she's willing to stomp over anyone to get her way. But she doesn't blankly do her sisters wrong to get her way, as Ichika did. She ended up helping Miku get her time with Fuutarou, which I'll be talking about next. And even though she was a little bitter about it, she didn't shut anyone down, so I can respect her for that. Nino is an interesting character of the quintuplets as well, being the more pushy type. And sure, for many she may be disliked because of the drug scene, as well as Ichika, she kind of makes up for it in my eyes, and acts as a catalyst for the other sisters to make moves. The next quintup is Miku. Out of all the sisters, Miku was the one who would study the most. She enjoyed learning about history even though her grades weren't the best. But out of all the sisters, of course, Miku was the most doleful. She was pessimistic about most things. She's pretty timid socially beyond her sisters, of course, and Fuutarou, and gets things stuck in her head a lot. Even when her time to shine came out, it was too much for her, because that's just how they were taught as kids, to push each other up. Miku was the first sister to fall in love with Fuutarou, as well as one of the first Quins to accept Fuutarou as a tutor. But it was always cute to see Miku jealous when another girl talked to Fuutarou, even though she didn't know how to make a move. Another thing about Miku is she really trusts her sisters, and that's a good thing. She's the type of person who needs a second opinion before doing something, and if and it is their help that eventually gets her to talk to Fuutarou confidently. In the second season of the show, Miku didn't do a lot compared to the other Quins, and I mean that in the relationship way and the story way as well. She doesn't, which is really sweet seeing her dedication for the guy. It didn't really take until the episode Scrambled Eggs, where while trying to identify all the quintuplets not based on their accessories, one of Miku's highest. Again, she's extremely emotional, so when he finally realized who she was, it hit her deeply, and his thought that he should have gone or something made her extremely happy. Man, so precious, man. Anyways, after Ichika's charade of betraying and lying to her sisters and Fuutarou, Miku was depressed because I'll say it again, Miku is emotional. But Nino got her off her stay to go see Fuutarou because staying inside while on the trip isn't going to change anything. In the final episode, with the help of her sisters, Miku spends a day with Fuutarou. They have fun looking around and Miku finally has her confession.
知ってるぞ。だが、
やっぱり私は家族のみんなが好き。
Beforehand, Fuutarou knew that Miku had some feelings for her, so when she said she was referring to her sisters, Fuutarou started to blush and just took off, and it made Miku happy. It's just adorable. I'm trying not to be biased here, but Miku is just really wholesome. In the end, I'd say Miku has the most development of the Quins, and her character makes you feel bad that half her sisters are more ambitious than her. And next, we got the one and only the Yots. I'm just kidding, guys. I just like calling her the Yots, but we got Yotsuba. Yotsuba is the athletic and most social of the quintuplets. She has a lot of energy and is straightforward when dealing with problems. So when Itsuki and Nino were fighting, she tried to make them feel better. That's the type of character she is, because she was the one that ultimately made them move schools. When put into the shoes of Yotsuba, you'd feel pretty guilty for bringing your loved ones down, even though it is ultimately no one's fault, and her sisters understand that. But again, Yotsuba always has empathy for her sisters, so her goal is not to fail, so that she does not have to rely on her sisters, but for them to rely on her. When she humbly says this, you start to feel really bad for Yotsuba. I mean, she should be able to do whatever she wants around the girls. She even helps her sisters try to get closer with Fuutarou. And the swing scene, man, like, where she got to see Fuutarou smiling, that was really wholesome, man. Like, you really start to feel bad for Yotsuba. And for the final quintuplet, we got Itsuki, or if you like calling her Itsuki, because she eats a lot, be my guest. Itsuki is the first quintuplet to meet Fuutarou. As I already mentioned, she likes to eat food. Besides Miku, she also likes to study, and even says she wants to become a teacher as a career, and she tries to act out as a replacement for their passed away mother. Itsuki, for me, is put into this weird category as a character where she tries to act as a mother figure with the girls because they don't have anyone to look down on them constantly, because it is their teenage years. It's pretty important to have like a figure watching them. And don't get me wrong, she does it pretty well. She also was the most affected from their mother's passing, as stated in the episode The Last Exam, where she visits her cemetery once a month and she wants to live up to her mother. Like I mentioned previously, Itsuki got into a fight with Nino on Fuutarou still tutoring them. She tried to take initiative in the situation. Before she makes up with Nino at the time, Itsuki decides to assist Fuutarou on dealing with his thoughts on Rina, who is the supposed girl he interacted with as kids. But again, as I said before, it's really her. She looked like what this Rina character would look like, and lets Fuutarou know he needs to start accepting himself. But again, Rina isn't a real person. It is whom he interacted with as a kid. And until Itsuki says it, he's not gonna know. Other than the hot spring scene, other than that, Itsuki didn't do that much, especially in season 2. She almost falls into the same category as Miku, but Miku has some higher points, so it's hard to say. Alright, so the real question now is, why does this chemistry work? I'll list my points here. First off, the girls are sisters, so they shouldn't completely hate each other for trying to get with Fuutarou. They fight at times, but at the end of the day, they still love each other and there's no hard feelings. Next, the characters have backstories/experiences that make their relationship interesting. Whether it's the Rina situation, or when Nino fell in love with Fuutarou dressed up as his fake cousin. There was interesting scenes that made the plot go deeper and more dramatic. Yes, this sometimes occurs in other romances, but here it is done so smoothly and makes the plot have more of a feel to it, rather than them flirting with him for 12 episodes. My final point here is that there's more moral to them being friends than just the romantic part of it. Again, yes, they all have feelings for Fuutarou, obviously, and it's only going to exceed in the next season. They do act as friends, and it was sweet to see the Quints consider him as a friend. Because again, before meeting them, Fuutarou didn't really have many friends. He had them, and he also had met other friends along the way. I do mention the community side of fandoms, if you will, a decent amount, but it's a good point to bring up. The fact there are nice communities who like to talk about the anime. Like this person who made a chart of how much the quintuplets speak on Reddit. Like, this is so cool to see, man. And that also includes the art. There are some fantastic art made by some very talented people. There are actually also games for this anime as well. There's a mobile game and a console game on the Switch and PlayStation. I don't know much of the mobile game, but I do know the console game is a story-based game where they're at the beach. Unfortunately, however, it is, as of I know, only supported in Japan. But hopefully it will get an international release. In conclusion, the Quintessential Quintuplets is a really, really good romance dealing with obvious fights on top of plots that go beyond the love part, and it's just a really fantastic anime. From what I've seen from most people, most have had positive feedback from the anime in general. I would be lying if I said this undoubtedly is the best romance out there, but I firmly believe, based off the points I brought up earlier, that this is the best romance right now, ending the first quarter of 2021. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I'd love to hear what you guys think of the anime in the comments. Do you think this is the best romance right now? Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in next week's video. Peace.